Loma Linda built on faith. It's built on the faith of those who are here now as they look to the future and plan for what's next, but it's really built on a legacy of faith that's come from so many people before us on whose shoulders we stand. In the early 1900s, Ellen White was pressed to start a healthcare and educational institution in Southern California. She appointed a young pastor by the name of John Bird and said, "John, go find a place." So he found the Loma Linda Mansion, the old heritage sanitarium that was here, and said, "I think this is the place."
Other church leadership were not quite as enthused. They didn't think we had the money. And yet, because of the faith of those individuals, they stepped out, they went forward, the money came in, and that was the beginning of Loma Linda.
Some 30, 40 years ago now, it was suggested that we put up a sculpture, and since there's been a legacy, 5 different sculptures now that have been put up across campus that represent different aspects of the healing ministry. Those all capture the story of Loma Linda in a pictorial way that I think has a profound impact, not only on visitors, but on those on our campus passing them every day.
The human form is just the ultimate challenge and the ultimate beauty. When I sculpt the emotions, I literally have to go there myself in order to capture and portray. Sometimes I look in the mirror, but my face is not terribly expressive. I'm not an actor, but I can feel the muscles on my face, and I know what pain should look like and what joy should look like, what inner peace should look like. I try to capture all that in little tiny movements in the clay, and it's startling how small changes can completely transform an expression and an emotion that it expresses. I had read the account, the story, the narrative of Ellen White arriving in Redlands and riding the wagon and coming into the area. My familiarity with the story helped me recreate it in my mind. I think because Ellen White had such a close relationship with Jesus, that when she made a proclamation, it usually was pretty authoritative and comforting, even though at the time the financial commitment for something like the Loma Linda campus would have been enormous. They couldn't even imagine how they're going to get there. The expression on her face that I wanted to portray is affirmation, confirmation, and internal joy. Yeah, this is it. I wanted to capture that moment where things settled for all 3, because there was no questioning Ellen White at that point. She's seen this place.
Well, in 1905, when they purchased it, it was already a sanitarium, and within a month opened the School of Nursing. The nursing profession, in my view, sets the culture of an institution probably more than anything else, more than doctors do. And so the fact that our School of Nursing says we want a sculpture representing the role we have played is significant.
It was a local artist with the school that came to create a piece that honors the nursing program and the nurses who've come out of here. And I think there was some romanticism around that era, that the clothing itself were very distinguished. You know, they had the cape, and they had, of course, the cap. The rest of it was a real uniform, starched and everything. I was able to borrow one of the capes to get the right weight of the drapery. It's wool, it's really heavy. I had to dry clean because it's been hanging for a long time, so it was fresh. The concept itself was entirely the school's. Jesus is present, and the light is in his left hand. His right hand is on the nurse's shoulder. The light is transferred through him to the nurse, and her right hand is on the boy's shoulder. That light is continuous. It's moving from Christ all the way down to the most needy. In the end, to be his light is probably the most succinct description of what the work is about. That facilitating God's healing to the suffering, to the underserved. And I think one of the best illustrations of that is actually Alan Collins' depiction of the Good Samaritan on campus, which was an inspiration to me. I wasn't even sculpting when I first saw that. That piece is so powerful. His work tends to be more stylized, which means that it's not about the detail, it's about catching your attention to the meaning, to the forces involved, to the emotions, the connections.
I was a nursing student when the Good Samaritan sculpture was installed, and I remember just coming and standing and looking at it and absorbing all of the wonderful surprises that were part of the depiction of that story. Then later, as I would teach medical students about whole person care, that was one of the assignments that we had, was to come up and have them just stand around the sculpture and absorb it and live with it and see what it was that spoke to them through that visual depiction of the story from Scripture.
To me, the Good Samaritan statue is even more pertinent today than it was when it was put up 30, 40 years ago. Because what is an example of the biblical story of the Good Samaritan, where a Jewish man was robbed, beaten, and left by the wayside. Two fellow countrymen, a teacher and a preacher, if I can call them that, walk by and says, "Sorry, I can't help you." In their minds, they were saying, if I help him, what will happen to me? And didn't want to take the risk. It took a man from another culture, a disgraced, cast-out culture, the Samaritans, to stop and say, I'm going to reach out and help him. That's the story of the Good Samaritan. So when Alan Collins, the sculpture, portrayed this as saying, okay, we're going to select an African American as the Good Samaritan in this sculpture, how meaningful it was. It wasn't another Jew reaching out to this man. It was a different culture saying, I'm going to step across that boundary and help. And that's really become the iconic sculpture of Loma Linda, not only because it was the first, because it has such powerful meaning in our world today. After the Good Samaritan sculpture, a number of years went by. But Dr. Matiko, who had commissioned the first sculpture, said, I would like to do one more on campus. And as we thought about it and brainstormed with him, the feeling was the story of the woman who touched the hem of Christ's garment is so powerful. We placed it in front of our Centennial Complex, our main academic building on campus, basically with a reminder that students, everything you do, every patient you touch, remember that it's Christ is the healing power behind that.
I really loved Alan's approach on this one. There was genius to put just footprints on the ground. Beautiful solution to a difficult problem. How do you depict the crowd and all the tension that's happening around Jesus? You can see the timidity in her. I have to do this, but I don't want anybody to see me because I am condemned already as it is. And in Jesus' portrayal, he's not judgmental, but forceful. Who touched me? He wanted to confront her fears. He wanted her to come out and say, yeah, it's me. Don't be ashamed of it. Your faith has healed you. That is powerful stuff.
The sculpture we call Come Unto Me was Victor East's first sculpture on this campus. And as we brainstormed with Victor, the idea of how do we portray the welcoming aspect of Loma Linda?
The whole atmosphere of the piece is to come to Jesus, burdened, weighted down, sick, come. I'm here, I'm not leaving, I'm here for you. And you will have peace and healing. And that's what distinguishes Adventist healthcare, is that it's more than just medicine, it's more than just surgeries. It's about paying attention to the whole package. And when Jesus is sitting there with arms open, paying attention, there's this child running at him because he's just been healed. There's wholeness there.
So I stand here on top of the Hill Beautiful, the very place where Ellen White first came to Loma Linda and projected, prophesied the future of Loma Linda. And I can look right down over here and see the new hospital. And I often stand and think, what would Ellen White say today? I think she would undoubtedly say once again, this is the very place.